Hello Year 4s and welcome back. In the previous lesson, we were looking at fables from around the world. Today, we are going to continue looking at fables, and what we're going to be focusing on is the morals of the story. So I want you to pause for a second and think, what is a moral? Once we've had a definition of what a moral is, we are then going to be reading some stories, and we're going to see how these morals are conveyed through key ideas that we find in the stories that we are reading. If you are unsure of what a moral is, the best place to look is in a dictionary. So if I use my dictionary to have a look for the word moral, it gives me the definition that a moral is a lesson in the right behavior taught by a story or an event. So it is a lesson that you learn from reading these stories that tells you how to behave or tells you the right thing to do. I want you to think about the story that we read from our Hans Christian Andersen book about the emperor and his new clothes. What do you think the moral of the story was in that story? Once you've had a think about that, I want you to write down just a short explanation of what you think the moral of the story was for me. I'm going to share with you a very short story called Stone Soup. And this is a folk tale that will have a moral in, and we will discuss it once I've finished reading it. So, one day, in a small village next to a flowing river, two hungry wanderers showed up looking for ingredients to make a delicious soup. Since the two had no money, none of the villagers were willing to give them any vegetables or meat. With no ingredients, the two went down to the river and filled their pot with water. They then placed a large stone in the pot and began boiling the water. Soon, a curious villager asked them what they were doing. One of the men answered, "We are cooking stone soup, but we are still missing a few ingredients to finish it properly." The villager said she did not mind giving them some ingredients if she could have some of the soup as well. The two men said they would be happy to share with the entire village once the soup was ready. After the word spread, many villagers brought spices, vegetables, and meat to add to the soup. In the end, everybody had the hearty soup. What do you think the moral of that story was? I think that we can learn from Stone Soup that the lesson that we should learn is to share with our neighbors. If we don't share, we won't all get up to be able to take something out of it. If the village didn't share their vegetables and their meats, then there was no hearty soup for them to all enjoy at the end of the story. So by sharing with their neighbors, they were all able to partake and enjoy something really nice and warm. What I would like you to do today is the following. I'm going to project a worksheet up on the screen for you. Obviously, you don't have the worksheet, but you can write down the headings in a similar way. And then we're going to discuss a folk tale of your choice. I would like you to find a folk tale, and then we are going to break it up into the different sections. So your worksheet's going to look a little bit like this one that I'm showing you now. And you are going to then be discussing the folk tale of your choice, and you will be breaking it up into the beginning of your story, the middle of your story, the end of your story, and the lesson or moral that you will have to be, that you are learning from the story that you have just read. I will put up the worksheet for you to have a look at after I finish talking, but we are going to be discussing a story together and then breaking it up into the sections that you can see together. I'm going to model it to you, and then you will be able to do it yourself at home with the folk tale of your choice. The story that we are going to be discussing is one that some of you may have heard of already. It is called The Boy Who Cried Wolf. So it will come up on the next slide and you can read along with me. The Boy Who Cried Wolf. A shepherd boy was in charge of tending a flock of sheep. Every morning he took the sheep to a meadow near his village. Every evening he brought the sheep back from home. All day long he watched the sheep to make sure they were not harmed or didn't wander off and get lost. One day, the shepherd boy began to complain. "I'm bored," he said. "There is nothing to do but watch these silly sheep eat grass. Nothing different happens." As he watched the sheep munching on the tall green grass, he had an idea. What fun it would be to fool the villagers. He would pretend that a wolf was attacking the flock of sheep. "Wolf! Wolf!" he shouted. The villagers came running with pitchforks and clubs to drive off the wolf. When they arrived, there was no wolf. There was just the naughty shepherd boy laughing his head off. Again and again, the shepherd boy called wolf. Again and again, the villagers came. Each time, there was no wolf. At last, one day, a hungry wolf crept up on the flock. When the shepherd boy saw the wolf, he began to shout, "Wolf! Wolf!" He shouted and shouted, but no one came. The villagers thought the boy was up to his old tricks, so they ignored his calls. The wolf killed sheep after sheep before the boy finally drove it away. The shepherd boy finally learned that no one believes a liar, even when he's telling the truth. If we look at the story of the boy who cried wolf, we can see that the beginning of the story is the boy out on the field looking after the sheep. And he does this obviously day after day. Then the middle is what we would refer to as the build-up, is when you see that he starts getting really bored of doing this every day and he doesn't find it exciting. So he thinks that he's going to make it really exciting by shouting, "Wolf, wolf," and then having everyone run out. And then he thinks it's really funny and he finds it quite entertaining. The end of our story, a wolf actually does come. And then when he shouts, "Wolf, wolf," calling the villagers, nobody believes him. So I want you to take a moment and think, what do you think the moral or the lesson we could learn from this would be? I think that, as we said at the end there, that the lesson is that even if you are a liar, even when you are telling the truth, nobody would believe you. So even though the boy was eventually telling the truth in the end, nobody believed him because he wasn't trustworthy. He'd lied about it many times before. My task to you is the following. I would like you to choose your own fable and folktale to organize into a beginning, a middle, and end, and tell me what you think the moral of the story is or the lesson to be learnt from it. Now, I'm not asking you to rewrite the whole story into each section. I'd like you to summarize what happened in the story. So just like I summarized the story of the boy who cried wolf by breaking it up into the beginning of the story, the build-up or the middle of the story, and the end of the story, and then the lesson that you're going to learn, I would like you to do that with a story of your choice. It can be, if you would like, you can use the story of the Emperor's New Clothes that we discussed previously. It can be another fable of your choice. We have many that we've been looking at, and you can choose one from a different country, one that maybe your parents or your adults know. So it is your choice of which story it is, but I would like you to summarize each beginning, middle, and end in full sentences. Don't forget, obviously you don't have this worksheet, but you can use the same heading. So you can say beginning, middle, end, lesson, and then write a short paragraph on each of that of what you've learned. Don't forget to share it on Tapestry and share us the work that you have been doing.